ASU and ASU Care acknowledge the 22 Native nations that have inhabited this land for centuries. Arizona State University's 4 campuses and ASU Care are located in the Salt River Valley on ancestral territories of indigenous peoples, including the Acamel-O'odham and Peeposh Indian communities, whose care and keeping of these lands allow us to be here today. We acknowledge the sovereignty of these nations and seek to foster an environment of success and possibility for Native American patrons and communities.
Amen, amen, right? Right? That's real. Everybody, wherever you are, somebody was here first, right? Good evening, everybody. How you doing? It feels so good in here, doesn't it? Yes. I love this place. I love this place. And looking and seeing all these beautiful people, what I could see of you when the lights weren't in my face. Anyway, I'm Súle Greg Wilson. I'm the host for the night. I'm the American griot, and I have some things I have to say, but let me get you. The theme tonight, if you don't know, is perfect for Friday, quitting time. Yeah, for really. Okay, so I'm really honored to have been asked to host this, and very excited to be in this place, and really excited to hear what these ladies have to say and share about their amazing lives, which every time I meet with them, I get some amazing stuff. All right, so let's see. I'll see. After our stories, we're going to do these stories. Okay, I'm trying to ad-lib and read at the same time. Okay, let me calm down. Okay. I'm deeply honored to be sharing this space and time with this powerful lineup of women, and it's great to be here with you. And then, after our stories, we're all going to take the couch for some Q&A. So if something hits you, we'll be happy to resound when we sit down and share if you have some questions or anything like that. Okay? Okay? Okay. All right. And this will be a mic for everybody. Okay, so I'm going to kick this night off with a story from East Africa, a place my father visited long ago. It's kind of dry, sort of like here in the Akamba lands. And just give yourself a sad image, right? These 2 brothers are standing by the graves of their parents, big brother and little brother. And big brother's shaking his head. Little brother's got tears, of course. They're late teens. They know how to handle them, so they can live on their own, but they lost their parents. You know what that's like. And then they say their last bit of prayer, drop that last bit of earth, drop that last bit of water, and then they go home. And as they go home, they're saying, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? And little brother says to big brother, we have the 2 cows that were left to us. I bet we can get something for our future if we take those 2 cows out into the bush and give them to the wielder of magic. What might he give us? Big brother, he's silent for a while as they walk along. Good idea. You do it. So they get back to the house. Little brother ties up the 2 cows and takes them out to the magic man. Big brother waits. He comes back many hours later. Big brother looks him up and down. He looks the same. But then he's got this gleam in his eye now. And he says, big brother, I have a plan for us. Big brother says, let's do it. The plan is this. I change into a bull. And you take me to the North Marketplace and sell me. And then I run away and come back home and change back. Let's do it. So they do it. They leave their farm outside of town, go all the way to the North Marketplace when it's market day for the North Marketplace. And there's this guy, really a fine sucker, if you know what I mean. Guy's well-dressed. They've never seen him before. He's looking for a beautiful prize bull that he can hand over to the family of the woman he wants to marry, right? So, little brother's, he made himself a good bull. So he's like, wait a minute, there you go, good bull. And the man says, I want that one. Big brother says, cough it up. And he does. Gets 3 goats, bag of chickens. Good. So, man takes his prize bull. He starts walking off to his house. Once they get out of town, start getting into the bush with the windy, bull runs off. And the man goes, oh no, I need this. He runs, chases him. He's following the tracks. He can hear the crashing through the bush as the bull goes. And then he slows down because he sees the bull tracks and he sees lion tracks with the bull tracks. And he hears, row! He goes, oh, my prize bull. The lion's got my prize bull. Of course, you know what happened, right? Bull in the front, lion in the back. Goes on home. And the scheme works, North Market, West Market, East Market, South Market. This farm is getting full. And the brothers are saying, we got it good. We can quit this soon because, no, but this is too good. We got to keep going. So they go Central Market. Slim guy says, I like that bull. Let me have that one. Cough it up. He does. They walk out of town, going south this time. Even deeper bush, getting a little more lush as it goes south. Bull waits till the prime moment. Takes off again, down into the bush. Boom, ba-da-dum, 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 ba-da-dum. But then he looks behind him, and Slim Man is right there with him. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So he runs even faster. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Slim Man is still right there with him. Changes into a gazelle. Pa-chicoo, pa-chicoo, pa-chicoo. Look behind. Cheetah. Oh, no. Sparrow. Hawk. Perch. Barracuda. Whoop. Out of the water. Okay. Back to human. You win. I know. Now, let's go back to your brother. Get my money, or my chickens, or my, my trade, and never, ever do it again. You got to know when to quit. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm the younger brother, by the way, so I really am. Okay, our next teller. Amazing woman. And we had great bios. And look what they did. They all ripped them to shreds. Okay, so our next teller, our wonderful person here is Liz Warren. Oh, there she is, sneaky devil. Let me do this.
Oh, do it, yeah.
4th generation Arizonan, co-founder and director of the Storytelling Institute. And she's got, this story that she's got, it's more like, whoa, no more than.
Never again. It's more of a never again story. Stacy, would it be possible to bring the house lights up so I can see the audience a little? I'd really like to see the audience. A little more if you can. I still really can't see their faces. That's great. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much. Storytellers like to see the listeners so we know how the story is being received. And also for me it helps with having the lights in my eyes as well. So thank you for that very much. I learned to make turkey gravy from my father, John Henry Warren. And he learned to make it from his mother, Violet. Now, they were both much better cooks than I am. But my turkey gravy is just as good as theirs because it is theirs. I make it exactly the same way that I saw them make it dozens and dozens and dozens of times, all the time, all through the years that I was growing up. And the way they did it was they'd take the drippings in the pan, put them back on the stove, heat them back up, take a mason jar with some flour and water, shake it up, pour it through a strainer, mix it around, put in whatever salt and pepper that you need until the flavor is just perfect. And then you have the best food ever invented, turkey gravy, beautiful golden caramel brown, the entire reason to cook a turkey in the first place, right? I got curious about the way that the turkey gravy had spanned the generations. And I decided to do a little research, and I learned that humans have always loved drippings, meat drippings. In fact, and this is true, there is some archaeological evidence that we invented pots and pans in the first place just so that we could catch the drippings, from the meat on the spit. But the way that we make our turkey gravy, and I bet some of you probably make it that way too, the first recorded instance of it is from the early 1800s in Europe. And that is where I think that my great-great-grandmother Antonia learned to make it. She was born in 1816 in Germany. So I'm sure that must be where she learned to make the gravy. By 1840, she had gotten herself to Boston. And that's where she met her future husband, also from Germany, just before he went across the country to join the gold rush. But I'm thinking that she must have made that gravy for him before he left, because it wasn't too much longer after he got over there that he sent her the passage to sail all the way around South America and join him in Santa Cruz, California. And so that's how the gravy got to the West. Now, she taught her daughter, her daughter Mary, who brought it to Arizona and taught her daughter, Lucy, who taught my grandmother, Violet, who taught my father, John, who taught me. And in this way, the gravy was begotten through the ages. Now, given that gravy, specifically turkey gravy, is the savory, golden lifeblood of my family, can you imagine that there would ever be a time when I wouldn't make it, when I would fail to make it? But I'm astonished to tell you that happened. I decided not to make it. It was November of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. We weren't going to have the big annual potluck Thanksgiving party that we had had for 35 years with 30 to 40 of our closest personal friends and relatives. The whole thing seemed so empty and so sad. Thanksgiving was going to be empty. Why would I bother to make a turkey? I didn't want to do it. And it was in that frame of mind when I was seduced by those ads from the grocery stores, right? Let us cook your turkey. Just place the order. You can tell us exactly what you want. Do you want mashed potatoes? Do you want gravy? Of course I wanted gravy. Do you want stuffing? What do you want? So I did. I thought, this is great. Everything's going to be different, so let's make everything different. And I scheduled it all, and I arranged for the pickup at 11 on Thanksgiving morning. Here's how I thought it was going to go. I thought I would drive to the grocery store and pull up into one of those pickup slots. I would text them that I was there, jump out, open the trunk, and they would come rushing out with my warm turkey, right? It's covered maybe somehow, but a warm turkey on a platter. They'd put it in the back of my car. I would rush off. My husband and I would have our I thought, this is going to be great. It didn't occur to me to question my fantasy version of how this dinner was going to go until Thursday morning. I thought, I better check and make sure I have the number so I can text them when I arrive. Well, that's when I realized, or I learned, that they were not going to be bringing the turkey out to me. I had to go into the grocery store. I hadn't been in a grocery store in 9 months. But I thought, what am I going to do? I got to get our dinner. So my husband loaded me up with my N95. He insisted I wear surgical gloves. So I get there, I put on my mask, I put on my blue surgical gloves. I was the only person wearing surgical gloves. They had the carts lined up outside. I got my cart and I pushed it into the grocery store. And let me tell you, people, it was a scene of swirling chaos. It was packed to the gills. People were just sort of pushing their carts around randomly, looking up in the air, making furtive glances at each other. It was clear that just like me, most of these people hadn't been in a grocery store in a long time. I myself stopped dead in the entryway trying to figure out what to do until someone asked me to move. And by asked me to move, I mean bump me with their cart. And I came to, and I noticed there was a man in the booth by the door, and that people were lined up there, so I lined up there too. And I gave him my name, and then he waved me over to the line of people that was now snaking its way through the islands that used to hold the prepared food when people still went to the grocery store. Everybody was wearing a mask, and we had the social distance of the islands and the carts. But that is when my fantasy version of my dinner completely imploded, right? And how could it not? But of course, the food was cooked, but it was in no way ready to serve, right? There were cooked, shrink-wrapped turkeys, and of course, boxes of food that were going into people's carts. I'm making my way, I'm making my way, making my way. All of a sudden I hear, warm, warm. I know, is that me? Is that me? I called up, are you saying warm? And they said, warm, and I'm like, so the man walked over with my 20-pound shrink-wrapped turkey held at shoulder height, stiff arm. He brings it over in front of my cart, releases it, clatter, 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 clatter. The woman behind me shrieks a little bit in alarm. Somebody else rolled up with all the rest of my food and waited while I put it into my cart. I rushed out to my car, put it in the back, drove home, put it on my counter, and that's when the reality of the situation hit me. It was the saddest simulation of any kind of dinner, much less a Thanksgiving dinner, that you could possibly imagine. The turkey, as I mentioned, had been shrink wrapped, but when I tried to get the plastic off of it, maybe vacuum sealed would have been more appropriate. The plastic had stuck to the chicken like an extra skin. Pulled it apart. I tried to slice the turkey. It had the consistency of what I think a wetsuit would be like if you tried to serve it for Thanksgiving dinner. The stuffing was just little cubes of bread that somebody had baked with some onions and celery. The mashed potatoes were the exact same ones that I had just a couple days before gotten from the Costco. I thought, what the hell? The grocery store is reselling me Costco mashed potatoes? And yes, they were. The green beans are actually not bad. But the gravy? It was an abomination. First of all, it was not golden caramel brown. It looked like beef gravy. If beef gravy had been modeled on burned walnuts. But it didn't taste like beef gravy. It didn't taste like anything. It didn't taste like beef gravy, chicken gravy, turkey gravy, ham gravy, it didn't taste like any kind of gravy. It tasted like salted water that somebody had thickened and dyed brown. Oh, did you say you'd cry? I heard somebody say they'd cry. I did. I wanted to cry. I wanted to cry. Well, we ate it. What were we going to do, right? It was Thanksgiving. Now it was almost 1 o'clock. We had all this food. I mean, we'd paid for it, so we ate it. But honestly, it would have been better if we just made grilled cheese sandwiches, right? And called that Thanksgiving. And that's when it really, of course, then it came to me. I realized that the holidays, especially holidays involving turkey, those aren't times when you try something new, at least not for me. Holidays for me, especially holidays with turkey, are about doing what we've always done and remembering the people that we did it with. And at least for the period of that meal, being with them again in our memories and in our hearts. So that Christmas, I made the whole turkey dinner. And it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a privilege. It felt like a blessing. When I made the turkey gravy, and I dipped that big serving spoon in it, brought it up to my mouth and blew on it just a little. And then I put that spoon in my mouth, and just like that, oh, that long line of gravy-bearing ancestors sprang to life within me. So, to our theme of quitting time. I will never quit making gravy for as long as I am able. If there is a turkey to be made, I will make it, and I will make that turkey gravy. And it's not just the taste of the gravy, as resplendent as that is. It's also the power of the gravy to take me back in time, to open a portal in time through which I can go back to 2019. The last time I made Thanksgiving and made the whole dinner and the gravy for our friends and family, back to 1990, the last time I made the gravy with my father, back to 1965, watching my grandmother make the gravy in Skull Valley, Arizona, and then through the power of the gravy and imagination, I can see that long line of grandmothers at their stoves making the gravy. Lucy, Mary, Antonia. That gravy is the savory proof of their lives. The people they loved, the journeys they took, the mistakes they made, the lives they lived. That long line of people stretching back that allows me to be here, to put that spoon of gravy in my mouth. The tangible proof of their existence and of mine. Thank you.
I've had the gravy. I can testify to the gravy. I swear for God. Thank you. Give her another hand. That was such a blessing.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that evokes for you, as it did for me, all those instances that traditions have been passed down to us. So tell me, how did your dad give it to you? Did he make you just sit and watch? Did he give you a formula or what?
You know, that's a good question, and
Osmosis?
I watched him do it for a long time, and one of the reasons that I was watching so closely is because you want to be the person to get the first taste, right? So just like there, is it done? Is it done? Is it done? Right. So I just learned by watching him, and I suppose at some point, the ceremonial mason jar was handed to me to allow me to make the gravy myself. But I learned by watching, I'd say.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Súle.
Liz Warren, wow. Amazing. I'm hungry. That's right. Our next teller That's you? Okay, Candace Hamana. Now, she, as you see, is a wonderful editor, as are all of our people. And she's the owner of Badger PR and the founder of the Indigenous Peoples Public Relations Association. She has over 15 years of communications expertise and experience, which includes media relations, digital audience strategies, community outreach, crisis communications, and grant project management skills. Vital stuff in this day and age. She's also co-owner of Cahokia PHX, the first Indigenous woman-led, woman-owned art and entrepreneur space in downtown Phoenix, which, yeah, I have to go. Now, you've heard she moves between the traditional and the modern. Now let's hear how she does it. Candace.
Ascoli, thank you. Nakwang tapki na Candace Hamana yan matsiwa na hanangunga na mangkanga sino. I have my mom in the audience tonight, and I'm feeling especially vulnerable, but we're going to power through this because this is a story that I don't think I've ever shared with her. So when you see me getting emotional, if you can just kind of clap your fingers for me, that would be amazing. Thank you. I want to dedicate this story to my Uncle Lawrence. About 7 years ago, I accepted a position working for a water utility company here in Phoenix. And part of my responsibility in that role was to conduct tribal community outreach, to show up at different events and to have tribal engagement activities, inform them of public meetings, and invite them to different workshops. You know, if you've lived in Arizona for any length of period of time, you know that water is a finite resource. Water is something that we're fighting over because we live in a desert. And the hydrology tells us, that we've been in a drought since 2000 and, it's been about 20 plus years that we've actually had a drought here in Arizona. And so of the 22 federally recognized tribes that are in Arizona, half of them have outstanding water rights settlement claims that have not been settled. And so just to kind of understand and kind of explain the gravity of that situation and adding a little bit of context to the work that needed to be done. Thank you. That's awesome. I actually heard that science, somewhere, there's a scientist that said that, you get stage fright because you think you're going to get eaten. Like back in the prehistoric times, that you're going to be like cornered off into a cave, and that made you feel so vulnerable that you were just going to get swallowed up. So I'm still here, so we can move forward because nobody's going to eat me. Going back to, the decision to go and work for the tribe, or to work for the water utility company, a lot of the work to me felt very performative. A lot of the work to me felt like I was just showing up and showing face. I've been kicked out of tribal council meetings because it was my responsibility to sit in the room and to hear what tribal leaders were saying about their water and the resources and how they needed those resources and where they were going to be directed. And so I've been asked by tribal leaders to, please leave the council chambers. You're not welcomed here. The job came with a very specific set of circumstances that made you feel like you had a target on your back. But before I took that job, I sat down with my Uncle Lawrence, and he is definitely a character. He can talk for very long periods of time, but he shared with me some really valuable words. A lot of it had to do with his own experience of he had worked in elected office back on for the Hopi tribe. He had some working knowledge around water, and he had also kind of had an alignment with other leaders about, how to resolve water rights claims. He had a lot of knowledge to share with me. And there's a few things that he shared with me that really stuck with me, but one of the first things that he said was, I'm not going to convince you that you need to take this position, and I'm not going to try to persuade you not to take this position. But what I will tell you is that, sometimes you need to understand how the system works from within. And, taking this position with this company will allow you to understand how people think. It'll help you understand how the system works from the inside. And so, there's going to be a time, however, if you do decide to take this position, there's going to be a time where you realize, okay, I've learned everything that I need to learn, in this position. I've learned everything that I need to learn, in my role with this company, and, it might be time to move on. And he shared that really valuable experience and knowledge with me, and that advice, and I really took it to heart. I did end up working for the utility company. This company made decisions by a board of directors who were elected at large. And one of the key decisions that they decided to make was they found a legal loophole that allowed them to retract some of their fiduciary responsibilities to continue to have a coal mining plant produce the coal to give them the fuel for their water system that delivers the water down here to Phoenix. But the water that was used to extract coal was taken out of the water table on the Navajo Nation, which is land adjacent to the Hopi tribe. And I am both Hopi and Navajo, so this was definitely an issue that really hit home for me. And to see sort of the, I can't say callousness, but the indifference of the board to make a decision that would have such a tremendous impact on the tribes, because the Hopi and Navajo tribes were expecting these coal mining royalties till 2044. So this was like, I don't know, a 40-year or 50-year contract where they were going to pay royalties to have the water extracted for coal, and the coal would be used at the Navajo generating station to bring that water delivery down here to Phoenix. And so when they found this legal loophole, it literally cut, those royalties that the tribes were depending on by about 25 years. And if you know anything about tribes, you know that they're already very strapped for funding. They've got programs, and I'm not talking about, tribes that are around here in the city that have, entertainment districts and casinos and gaming revenue. The Hopi tribe, where I am from, and with my mother, that's not the case. And thank you, my hands are getting sweaty. So for the Hopi tribe, they were relying on the revenue coming in from those types of activities, and it made up 85% of the budget that they were counting on. So obviously you look at, mining just by definition, off of tribal lands is something that's like what we consider extractive economy. You're taking resources out, you're not really putting anything back into the origin of where you're extracting from. On top of that, you're depleting water resources, and you're having environmental impacts through, the coal mining operation itself, which, impacts the livestock. It impacts the land. It impacts the ability to grow medicinal plants. It impacts our cultural ways and our life ways. So that's a lot of context into what has happened, but basically the board of directors were holding public meetings, and they were inviting, tribal communities to come down and to listen to the conversations. I mean, if you know how board of directors work, you know that they have meetings for the public. They also have internal private meetings, but they generally like to get the public input before they start to make decisions that impact their stakeholders. Well, from my perspective and in the role that I played at this company, I had asked them, is this something where, maybe the board of directors would consider going and seeing the impacts themselves to, these tribal nations, and get some understanding and get some education around, how these decisions that are made down here are going to impact our communities. And I was told, that's a great idea. We really like that. We're going to take it to the board, but you have to remember, the people that we have an obligation to are the people that are paying for their water here in Phoenix and in the other areas that serve, that get the water deliveries. And so I kind of knew, that was going to be their approach, but I remember thinking back to what my Uncle Lawrence told me about, that there would be a moment where you feel like you've learned, everything that you could learn from a company. And one such day occurred where, we were having a public meeting, and the Hopi tribal chairman at the time, Timothy Navanyama, he had traveled down to stand in front of the board of directors at this, at the water utility company, and he actually begged and pleaded for the board to travel, come to the village, come to Hopi, come see our ways, like we're welcoming you with open arms. It's an invitation to come and learn about us, about our people, thank you, about our way of life and what water means to us. It's not just something that fills a swimming pool. It's not just something that waters your lawn. This is very much, water is life for our community. And thank you. It's very vulnerable. I'm used to talking about a lot of other things and not so much this personal story. But it's very much tied to the work that I do. And so it's important that I share this with you because, I'm told, and I've talked to friends, and they said that this is an important story that needs to get out there, that needs to be heard, and it is my story to tell. So you just have to kind of give me some grace, and I thank you very much for that. They told the chairman in no uncertain terms, that's off the table. We're not going to discuss this. Thank you for coming down. We appreciate you being here. This is a public forum, so you only have a limited amount of time to speak, and so that was kind of the end of it. But this was at a public meeting, and I remember standing in that room and feeling so defeated, and feeling like I had gone and had an education and had all this experience, and that I was using it for the wrong reasons. I didn't feel good about myself in that moment. And I remember walking out of that meeting, and there was a ramada on the campus, and I was crying. It was really upsetting. And the chairman and his chief of staff and his secretary, they came walking out from the meeting, and they saw me. And the chairman came up to me, and he's like, "You know what, Candace, it's gonna be okay. We're strong people. We knew that this might have been the outcome. We already, we didn't have rose-tinted glasses on about how these conversations were gonna go, but this is something that we needed to do. This was sort of us checking off the box and doing our due diligence, to show up and to talk to, or attempt to talk to, the board of directors, and ask them to come and see what that impact would be to the community." But he said, we're strong when we are resilient, and now that we know what the answer is here, we're gonna go and explore other avenues. And so I found a lot of comfort in that. I didn't feel like an outcast anymore at that time, because it meant a lot to me that, there's many ways that I guess I thought he could have reacted, right? That he didn't want to have anything to do with me, that I was, dancing with the devil over here. And so it was a great relief to kind of get that comfort from him, and also bring me back to who I was as a Hopi woman, as an Indigenous person, and adhering to, the cultural value system that I was raised with, and that made me who I was. And so that was my decision. That was a moment for me that was a catalyst for things that I had no idea that I was gonna decide to leave my job. I had no idea that I was gonna walk away from this very handsome salary and benefits and a state pension, and that, that I was just gonna dive headfirst into starting my own business and consultation services. But that is precisely what I did. I put in my 2-week notice, and I called a friend who's here tonight. Her name is April Tinhorn. Let me stand up, April. April is a very good friend of mine, and she also has her own consulting business. She's a few years ahead of me in terms of having her business, and she just really knows her stuff. And I remember thinking, who can I tell? Oh, I'm gonna leave my job and I'm gonna start my own company. So I met April for lunch, and I kind of dropped the bomb on her. And that for me was the decision to leave. And I take that decision with me even today as an entrepreneur, as someone who is, trying to be, step into that leadership role, be a matriarch for my community. I take all of that with me. And anytime I'm feeling defeated, that's where my mind goes. It digs deep. It reminds me that, that you should never quit on yourself. If anything, live your every day with purpose and intention, and don't compromise your values. Don't compromise your personal value system to get ahead, because it's really hard to kind of live with that on the daily. And I use that, though, as fuel. As an entrepreneur, when things get challenging, when things are difficult, that's my reserve. That's where I dig deep. And I remember those things that I've survived, things that have been challenges for me, and that is what kind of keeps me going. That's my fuel. That's my story. Those are the lessons that I've learned, and those are the lessons and experiences that I will pass down. So, thank you. That's great.
Right? Bless you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. That was a lot.
Yes. Bless this matriarch, please. One more time. Yeah. Has the tribal chairman come back? Or have you gone back? Okay, so come on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good working relationship, and even the governor that kicked me out of his council office, we're friends. We're friends on Facebook.
All right, bless you. Thank you so much, Candace.
Thank you.
This is why we come here, for honesty and reality and truth and humility and understanding. Bless you. Now, our third teller, Kathryn Nakagawa, and who also cut her thing to pieces, which I really appreciate. Okay. Dr. Kathryn Nakagawa was a native Arizona, third-generation Japanese-American, and associate professor of Asian Pacific American Studies in the School of Social Transformation at ASU. There's more.
Just one more sentence.
She's also co-owner of Baseline Flowers. The last remaining flower shop from the Japanese flower farms. Life takes you many places. Where did it take you, Kathy? Right.
Oh, thank you. I always forget how short I am. Thank you very much. Thank you. So it was the summer after my first year in college, and I came home, and I knew I needed a job before I went back for my sophomore year. And the last place I wanted to work was our family flower shop. I would have done anything except that. And so my friend actually said, hey, I'm working this other job. Why don't you come? They train people every morning. It's not bad. You can get a commission. So you can guess what kind of job it was. It was telemarketing. So I went down there, and there was it was an easy training. They give you like 15 minutes. There's a script. There are different branches. So if you want to keep the people talking, the longer you can keep them talking, the more likely they are to buy a magazine subscription from you, right? And if you sell a magazine subscription, the manager said, you get to ring the bell. So they show us how to dial the phone. I have my script in front of me. I start in. And I quickly find out that I am horrible at this job. I empathize too much with the people. The minute they showed any hesitancy in their voice about a magazine subscription, I'd be like, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. It's fine. Bells are ringing all around me, and I'm not selling anything. And the manager finally calls me over, and he says, not everybody is supposed to be a telemarketer. Maybe this just isn't for you. So after 4 hours, I quit. Did I go back to the flower shop to work? I did not. I went and found something else to do for the rest of that summer before returning to college. And as a kid, I grew up, and I did work in the flower shop some, but in high school, I didn't want to do that. As I got older, I wanted to earn my own money. I felt like I couldn't actually take money from my family working at the family business. So the first job I got all on my own. I was a junior in high school, and I'm driving on Southern near 48th Street, and I see a sign that says, Wendy's, old-fashioned hamburgers. They were opening up a new one right on the northeast corner of 48th and Southern. And it said, interviews, 10 to 2 on Saturday. So I'm like, I'm going to go in. I'm going to interview. I'm going to get this job.
I looked really nice. I put on a nice button-down shirt. I drove my Celica, Toyota Celica, up to the Wendy's. I went in, I filled out the little employment application, like, what experience do you have? I have experience working at a flower shop. I can do cashier work. I interviewed with the manager, John, and he was so nice, and he hired me right there on the spot. And what I really loved about how he put the team together was almost everyone was new to Wendy's, the Wendy's world. So there was no one who could like lord their knowledge over everybody else about how long they had worked at Wendy's. So they trained us all together, and we learned so much, right? We learned the history of Wendy's, Dave Thomas, his daughter, it was named after his daughter, Wendy. We learned that the hamburger, yes, is actually fresh beef that they brought in, and they had a hamburger pressing machine. So you'd put the beef in the top, and it would come out in the square patties. They didn't come frozen or anything like that. We were one of the first places, this sounds like an ad for Wendy's, doesn't it? We were one of the first places to have a salad bar. So you had to put the ice out just right. We sliced the cucumbers ourselves. We had to refill it. We actually also sliced all the lettuce ourselves. This is amazing, right? You're learning all this stuff about Wendy's. I don't know if it's still like that. This was in, you know, the 70s and 80s. I do not know the secret to why Frosties are so good. I'm sorry. That did come in a mix, so I don't know that. But I learned a lot of other stuff, right? I learned how do you get stains out of a coffee urn. You put in ice and salt, and you swirl it around, and then it takes it out. It was a great way of getting those coffee stains out. I learned how to work the griddle. I learned about how we would make the secret to Wendy's chili is they take the meat that's a little bit overdone, and they crush it up and they put it into the chili. Isn't that great? They don't have any waste. One of the best things, right, I learned was there's an exact way to put the burger together. The mayonnaise and ketchup go on the top bun, and then it's the lettuce, and then the tomato, and then onion if you like onion. I don't like onion. And then the mustard goes on the hamburger patty, and the pickles go on top of that, and then you put it together. And that's how you make a hamburger. I was really good at the drive-thru window and the register, so, you know, I was trained on everything. We were ready to go. We had a dry run at another Wendy's that was already open, and the regional manager came to check us out, and he's like, you guys are ready. We're going to have the grand opening. We're going to have balloons. There are going to be giveaways. You're going to get little free Frosties. Lots of going on. Wendy is going to make an appearance. We're like, Wendy? Dave's daughter's going to come and make an appearance? It's like, no. Somebody's going to dress up as Wendy. And then he came over to me later after the meeting and said, Kathy, we want you to dress up like Wendy. I was like, wait a second, I don't think Wendy's Japanese American. I don't know if I can play this part. He said, don't worry, it's okay, we have a costume. And they did have a costume. It was a blue and white striped shirt with a little ruffle neck and these blue these white pantaloon kind of thingies, and I wore my bobby socks and some black shoes. And they had a wig for me, right? So it was a red wig with the pigtails and little blue ribbons here. And then I drew freckles on my face. So it was the grand opening. I'm in my costume. I go out. I did, if I must say so myself, a great job. Handed out those balloons, took those orders, carried stuff to people's tables, handed out the free Frosties. I think it was a little out of character for them to ask me to clean tables too, because I don't know that Wendy would have cleaned tables at her dad's place, but I did. I cleaned the tables also, wiped them down with the bleach and everything like that. I was only playing Wendy for the first shift, so I had to go change out of the costume so somebody else could be in the costume for the second shift. And so after I changed, I came out and I went to the salad bar to get a salad, and a little boy runs up to me. He's like, "You're Wendy!" I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have a fan." That was so nice. I felt so honored. That was the last time I played Wendy, but I did stick at that job, not 4 hours. I stayed there for a year and a half until I went to college, and I really loved that job. I made so many friends there. My husband's here, and I'm sorry, I met my first boyfriend there. And John was just a great manager. And in fact, John came into the flower shop a few months ago, and he didn't stay to talk to me. But he asked Maria, who works there, he's like, I don't know if Kathy will remember me, but I was her manager at Wendy's. And I wish he would have stayed, because I would have told him, John, I remembered you as one of the best managers I ever had. And I love that job. And now I know the best way to make a burger because I worked at Wendy's. So I don't know why I resisted so much working at the flower shop, right? Because now I'm thinking about quitting the longest job I've ever held. So 4 hours was the shortest job I ever held. 26 years as a professor at Arizona State University, the longest job I've ever held. And I'm thinking maybe it's time for me to quit that job and run the flower shop. And about a year ago, I was thinking about that, and we had 2 cars crash through the building, right? It took out half of our building. It destroyed lots of our inventory. And I told my sister, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think Dad is sending me a sign saying, do not quit your job at ASU. This is one time I don't want you to just keep working at the flower shop. And she said, no. She said, he's saying you can do whatever you want with the flower shop. So if you want to do that, you should work the flower shop. So I took a leave of absence for the last year to see what it would be like not being at ASU. And it was fun to see the flower shop rebuild. And I keep seeing little signs all the time where people come in and they remember what the flower gardens were like at Baseline Road, and they remember something about my dad. And someone just sent me a letter the other day that said, I remember talking to your dad, and he was just the greatest guy. So with all of these little messages, I think it's maybe time for me to quit ASU, because there are some jobs you just can't quit, like a family business. Thank you.
So, a year and a half, you couldn't get the secret? But John did come in. Did he bought something? Did he buy?
I think he did buy something. It was it was a busy time and I wasn't there.
Did he buy with a credit card?
I hope, you're right. I should look him up.
You can look him up.
I hope he will come. Maybe he'll hear the story, or maybe Wendy's will hear this story and be like, "Can we?"
Wait a minute. Did you have any pictures of you as Wendy?
No, I don't have pictures of me as Wendy, but I still have my cap from when I worked at Wendy.
Okay, that's wonderful. Give her another hand, please. Kathryn Nakagawa. Okay. You don't need to be surprised. All right. It's time to bring everybody up now for our Q&A. Okay, time to welcome back. If you're watching the live stream, please put your questions in the chat. Wait, I should have. Wait a minute. Okay. The bull, right? It's the bull. Okay, if you're here, raise your hand. We can see you, and we'll bring the mic to you. Okay. All right. Got some. Okay, there's. Who was that man? Whoa, deep chair. Okay. They were really great with this. Okay, we have some starter questions. All right. We ready? Okay. When this was brought to you, did the story that you told tonight just pop up, or did you have to work at it? This story it came. I know I'm going to do that one. That one came to me right away. I hope it worked. But that's like, oh yeah, that'll be one. So how about you all? Did you know, or did it have to bubble up or formulate?
So I can say that I definitely have been sitting on this story and feeling all the feels for it. I had also recently been interviewed by this podcast called Ethical Voices, and I shared my story there. And then I had a follow-up call with a professor from the University of Florida, and they interviewed me for a little bit longer period of time, and that's actually going to be, my story will be a case study in the textbook for public relations professionals next year at the University of Florida.
Excellent.
So,
all right. That's really great to hear, because as you were telling that story, I was just visualizing that story being taken out into the world for the impact and the importance of the impact, and what the realization people say, everybody's a member of some tribe, and everybody needs to understand their tribe is part of another tribe. So if you think you're just this, your story will help so many people understand the bigger tribe that they are responsible to. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, it's true. Anybody else? What about you, Kathy?
Oh, no, I mean, I thought about another story a little bit. I worked at a matchmaking service briefly.
The one on Baseline?
No, it was when I was in graduate school. Matchmaking, a dating service.
Oh. Ooh. Quitting time? I want to know about quitting time.
I couldn't, it was so sad because people would call to see if they had any matches and they didn't. So I didn't like that. I didn't last that job very long.
Yeah. That is a sad tale. That is a sad tale. Okay, let's see.
I was going to tell another story. I talked to Súle about it, and I was trying to get it into my head, and it just wouldn't work. And this one was kind of in the back of my mind, and so the minute I decided to tell it, it went in my head just fine. Mm-hmm. So
that's the best COVID-related story I've heard yet, too. It was a nice part of the healing to hear a real positive thing through all that. I appreciate that, too, by the way. Okay, now, this has a question for you, Ms. Warren. As a storytelling veteran, author, and educator, what is one bit of advice you have for someone who may feel they're not yet a skilled public speaker, but they have interest in stories to tell?
well.
Well, Súle.
Let me get comfortable. I have two pieces of advice around that. One is that a lot of times I think when we're going to tell a story, we think that the story needs to be something unusual or dramatic or like, I don't even know, like everyday things aren't good enough. But the fact that the important thing about storytelling is that the more everyday the experience, the more relatable it is by a large number of people. So don't discount your stories because you think they're too everyday. Those are your most powerful stories. And then the second piece of advice I have for you all is resist the urge to write. If you're invited to tell a story, develop that story by telling it to other people, right? Just get a friend, tell them the story. Watch how they react. Watch where you'll learn new things, right? You'll learn new things about the story as you tell it. Watch what they want to know more about. Watch where they laugh. Watch where they cry. Give yourself permission to develop the story the way that you're going to deliver it by telling it. And then if you absolutely have to write it, well, when it's fairly well developed, record yourself and transcribe it. And then it's going to sound like you, right? But if you tell it often enough, you won't even have to do that. What you're trying to do is get your own voice out. So give yourself permission not to write it down first. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I like that twist at the end where she said, and then when you write it down, don't write it down, recite it, and then transcribe. It's like, tricked me. Okay. Okay, thank you. We're going this way, so you're on the spot. Wait, I got a question for you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's the same one. I was ready.
You're ready. Okay, it says, let me put the voice on. As a PR professional, you're always telling stories of some kind. Was it more difficult for you to craft this story and share it than it is to tell the stories of other people and organizations and businesses?
Yes, 1,000%. Also, thank you for saying that. That's such a great tip because I met a friend for coffee this morning and I was sharing my story because she's like, I'm not going to be able to be there. I wish I could. Like, I have to be out of town. I'm going to be in Yuma. And I was like, well, this is what it's going to be about. And there were a few more expletives in that storytelling experience. And I was letting her know what we were going to be talking about. And then I went home and I tried to write it out. And that was kind of futile. Yeah. Because I think that for me, that story is so personal and it made me feel so vulnerable. I don't go to those extremes with my clients. With my clients' work, it's all about amplifying, their mission, their value, their voice, the brand of, the company. And so I don't have to be in touch with my feelings per se, my personal vulnerabilities and, you know, generational trauma. Let's just throw it out there while we're talking about it. But, you know, you can really compartmentalize. You can really think about your client. You can think about, you know, who their target audience is, which really kind of helps you, you know, stay on point, stay on message, and deliver, you know, quality service to your clients. But yeah, this for sure was the hardest thing for me to do. So thank you so much. I'm so incredibly, incredibly thankful for the reception and for the snaps.
Thank you for your bravery. Yes. Yes.
Is my mic on? Okay. Tim Igo says, thank you for the story about quitting your first boyfriend from Wendy's. Good choice.
And in case you're wondering.
Not just a fan in the audience. Could have been a hookup, you know, somebody from the audience says, you know, you're... All right, your question is next, Kathy. Okay. Oh, it's very short. The story, I mean, on the question. How did you get involved with... I'm sorry, I didn't put the voice on. Tell us, Kathy. How did you get involved with storytelling? And when did that first happen?
Oh my gosh, Liz is a part of this story. I had told a brief, I was part of a Phoenix history night that Carol Poor organized, and they asked me to come and talk a little bit about the flower gardens, and Megan Finnerty was in the audience. And so when they were putting together another storytelling night, Megan reached out and asked if I wanted to come, and I was super nervous because that was just a short thing that I had written and I had read. And I met Liz through that because they did a coaching session, and Liz and Megan were so supportive of me. And then when the first time I told the story, the audience was just so receptive and so warm and wonderful. I have to say, storytelling audiences and the storytelling community is just the best community ever. They're so supportive and they love hearing the stories, and so that's how I got involved.
Okay, look at that. Thank you. Circle goes round and round and round. Tribe within tribe within tribe. All right, anybody? Yes.
Hi. So I have a couple of questions. First of all, I wanted to ask Kathy, what is it about your family that resulted in your business surviving when all the others didn't? It's a two-part question. And the second part is, everyone on the stage has had a different experience of America. And so I'm wondering how America was presented to you as a child with the history that the Japanese American experienced.
Wow. That's a really deep question. I'll say the first part. All of the families eventually had to sell their land because it just wasn't sustainable to continue farming. And my dad was the only one who decided to carve out where the flower shop was because he wanted to continue running the flower shop itself, even though they weren't farming the land anymore. So because of that, he maintained the business and left that to us, which was something that for a long time I thought he should just retire. But now that I'm running it and there's so much outpouring of support, I am so grateful that he had that foresight to think of it. And it's really because the community is so supportive that the business has been sustained for so long. For the other part, they didn't talk a lot about being incarcerated and imprisoned. Both my parents were imprisoned during World War II, but by the U.S. government. And they didn't talk about it a lot. They just kept saying to work hard and, you know, things will happen, and they built the business that way. And so I think that was probably the lens that I had of things. And we were one of the few Asian American families when I was growing up anywhere. I grew up in Tempe. And so I would get pieces of racism and different stories and things like that, but they never had us dwell on them or talk to them. So in some ways, I guess it was a just ignoring kind of issue, but it wasn't until later that we really had conversations about it when I got older. Thank you.
Anyone else out there? Ah. Scamper, 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 scamper.
So it's not a question, it's more a comment. But Kathy, my face lit up because I ordered all my wedding stuff, my wedding flowers from your business, not knowing it was you. And that was like 19 years ago. So I'm still glad that you guys are still around. So I'll have to swing by sometime.
Scamper, scamper, scamper.
Follow up to that comment. Are you still married?
Yes.
Now, I have a question. You've told us what you've been through. Again? Go through it again? What do you mean? You know, it...
At Wendy's again, especially if I got to play Wendy.
Would you be Wendy? I would
pay to see that.
Yes, I might even come to have a burger there just to get served by Wendy. Yes. Ah. So, but the experience, you experienced it. Well, yeah, Liz answered that at the end of her story. And Candace, you got so much from yours. Yeah.
Yes, I definitely think that, you know, as painful as it was at times, I think that I would not be the person that I was today, especially as an entrepreneur. You know, you are your own worst enemy in your head sometimes when you're owning your own business, and there's imposter syndrome, and there's limiting beliefs, and there's your own personal bad habits that will catch up with you in those first couple years. Badger PR is a representative of who I am as a Hopi woman. Badger is the clan that I come from, as well as the Roadrunner clan. My mom says that I'm more like a roadrunner now because I'm running around and hopping around all over the city and doing events, but Badger is also that animal. It's like F around and find out kind of. So I bring that sort of fearlessness into the work that I do now, and it's really important for me that there's alignment with my values as a business owner if I'm going to work with a client, and I'm always going to be advocating and for more Indigenous perspectives with our own Indigenous voices. From the boardroom to the newsroom. And we just need more representation, which is why I founded the Indigenous Peoples Public Relations Association. I think that the pandemic really highlighted the need for people like me with my experience and my knowledge. And so that's why I founded the nonprofit, and we're going to be partnering with Mesa Community College and putting our first IPRA conference on in November this year.
Good. Congratulations. Blake, congratulations. Excellent. Wow. Yes?
We've got time for 2 more questions.
2 more questions. And here's one right here.
There you go.
Scamper, scamper, scamper.
Well, this is a treat. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But my comment to the young lady in the middle, my grandfather told me something when he was dying of cancer. And he told us kids, I was about 6 years old at the time, you never give away your values. Nobody can take them from you. Don't give them away. And having said that, I'm from Minnesota, so I live in the land of, they say 10,000 lakes, but it's really 15,000 lakes. And when I first came to Phoenix to visit, who's now my wife, sitting next to me, I found that the way people waste water is sinful. It's terrible. And I wish your story could get out in the public a little bit more to maybe make them stop and think. When you let that faucet run when you don't have to, that's hurting other people. And I'd love to try this storytelling just once.
Ah, very good start right there. Very good start right there. Okay, final contender? Or we got one. We got one.
One more, last one. Listen up, everybody.
All right. It was interesting with you suggesting that the best stories are the ones that are the most everyday. And I guess sometimes when I think about telling a story, I may avoid it because it doesn't have a punchline. And you all had a punchline that wasn't, there was a lightness and there was like such heartfelt, like just authenticity in the way that you shared your stories. But the final turn of all your stories was around family. It connected each one of the stories, to connecting to the legacy of ancestors, and then you kind of carrying on that tradition, to the idea of how you want to provide a legacy for future generations, to the idea that you can't quit your family business. But that was a theme I caught from the audience member. But between the three of you, what were some themes that you connected to within each other's stories?
That's a good final question.
All right.
I'll go first. I would just say that my grandma Winifred was always priding herself on being in the kitchen and getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and getting the turkey ready. By the way, I didn't eat dinner, so I'm kind of hungry. But her food was the most amazing food, and it was probably the most delicious because of the amount of love she poured into it, and because we said grace and a blessing for that food every time we sat down to eat. And I would have to say that it's really beautiful that my mom has picked up that torch. So she's the one now who is getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and getting that turkey in the oven. And, with tribal communities, it's not just about eating and nourishing your body. It's about like taking care of each other and nourishing your community. It is part very much like the lineage and the knowledge that you're passing down. But when you go to a village up on Hopi, the first thing they'll do when you walk into the door is tell you to sit down and eat. Like, sit down, we're gonna feed you. And that wasn't enough. You need another serving. And so I think that theme very much resonated with me, and I love that story. I don't know if I can match anything you got going on here. But we've all had fun jobs. I worked at McDonald's, your competitor, when I was in high school, and I'll tell you a fun fact. My classmates called me Big Mac because I gave out free food in the drive-thru on winning game nights. They had to win the game, but then I would give them a few extra Big Macs.
Oh, yes.
I actually think you put it well, that the stories with family and how it all ties back were really something. And I will also say that I like turkey gravy, and I make a really good turkey gravy, but it wasn't handed down. But now I want your recipe, Liz, because I want. Yeah, thank you. Okay. And then I love the story that that your uncle said you kind of need to be on the inside to figure out how to change things. That really resonated with me. Thank you.
Well, even before we came, I noticed that we were all three Arizona natives. And I thought that was great because Arizona is mostly populated by people who were born somewhere else, especially people our age, right? There's a lot of 10-year-old natives, but not that many natives of my age. So I noticed that right off the bat. But the other thing I noticed in the listening that I didn't anticipate was the connection to the land and to farming and to water. I grew up on a farm in Gilbert. That wasn't part of my story, but of course I knew that. And of course with Candace's story about the water and the way it's used, and Kathy's grew up on a farm as well. So didn't expect that.
Wow. Well, I am Twitter-pated and flabbergasted and full up and honored. And I hope you all got some of the same like that. So, and Liz and Candace and Kathy, thank you so much. You all here and you all out there, thank you so much. And thank you to the center and ladies and gentlemen who have presented us tonight and given us this beautiful place and made it so warm for us to come into this place. Didn't it feel good coming in here? It's because of them. Please give them a hand. All right. And on that, I think we'll just say good night. Thank you so much. Let's all stand and take a bow.